What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So what we're going to do here is we are going to just recap two trades on the day, best trade and worst trade. That way you guys can learn from the best and then kind of learn from one of the worst or, bad trades that we took on the day. Rather than going over everything in super fine detail to make a super long video, just trying to make these things kind of quick, give you the meat and potatoes of it, and then go from there. So first thing that we started trading on the day here was ENPH, okay? So we ended up going short ENPH, and obviously it just wasn't the right stock to be going short on. The thought wasn't bad, but just not the right stock. So to give you some perspective, the other day, just yesterday, I think they got some news of like some accounting fraud. Stock got rocked to the downside. You can see this really big bounce from yesterday into today. After a big bounce like that, it's not, not uncommon to see it retrace and have sort of a drop off, right? What I kind of failed to really recognize is that long term, I mean, this thing already had dropped out into the bounce zone. So if I were watching this properly, really this is a long play from yesterday, and we should have been getting long into it. Even on the daily chart, the stock was, into the buy cycle. So the first big mistake is that when trading intraday today, not that you couldn't have made money shorting it at some point or that you can't make money being on a bear at it at some point, but from the longer term perspective, we're in the buy zone. So theoretically, a short on the intraday time frame is going against the bigger time frame trend, okay? So if we were shorting intraday weeks back as it was up here, we'd be shorting intraday into the overall longer term trend. So that was the first mistake that I'd made there, and that's something very important you want to pay attention to. All right, but nonetheless, here's the deal, is that it bounced overnight pretty big. So we're going to look for some sort of retracement pullback before watching along. Well, we took our first trade, in here and another one here that failed. And so you'll see here in just a second. So we'll put the trades on. So first things first, we go short 100 shares when it gets to one standard deviation out, which is normally our resistance. We recognize the stock was just way too strong, so we took it off. And the reason we started short 100 shares is because we seen that the stock was strong, and we wanted to take small size if in the event we were wrong, we could either decide to average down as it went up so that when we did get the rolling move, we could turn it into a green trade. Well, I said to myself, this is too strong, and I'm probably not even going to really want to trade it much more after seeing how strong it was. So I closed out 100 shares. And then I had seen a head and shoulders pattern that I thought might break down, but we were kind of already down a bit. So again, I only took 100 shares to test the waters. And after feeling that squeeze up, to me, it seemed like the stock was just too strong. And you can see I stopped even trying to trade it at that point, right? I just let it go. And you can see we bounced up and faded some more, but ideally it's just really trading sideways here and it's not breaking down. Part of the reason for that is it's holding support over some longer time frames here. So on the 5-day chart, we have broken our trend and we have tested it multiple times and we've held over it. So I think ultimately ENPH for the day is probably just going to stay somewhat consolidating here within this range. And then tomorrow we'll have, maybe a move to the upside or something as we try to approach back into these upper channels. So for right now, the short breakdown appears to be below 45.14 on the 5-day chart. So right now, there's just no trade for me on ENPH. And again, those were the two trades that obviously did not pan out as planned because we were shorting against the trend of the stock, not only on the 1-day time frame, but just in general on the larger, bigger picture time frame. Whenever you're doing that, again, it's not that you can't make money shorting or being against the trend. The moves to the downside will just be harder. They're not favoring the trend. So your profit potential usually shrinks and it's just more of a pain in the butt. So if you can recognize it sooner than later, your loss will be small and you just avoid doing it the next time. So that was part of the problem with the trade here for me on ENPH today. Okay, now let's move over to the next trade, which was the good trade. So this trade was actually, the stock was called out by a member in our room who was asking me questions. He goes, "Hey, Connor, what do you think about this stock?" So at the time, when we looked at it and first got Notion, he had actually said, "Hey, what do you think about a short on this?" And as soon as I pulled it up, I said, "Yeah, this has potential for a short. Good eye on this, right?" So we had caught the stock as it was trading. It might have looked a little bit different at the time, but basically put it this way, this green line may have been down to it might have been right there. Honestly, it probably was. But anyways, so stock was trading all the way up here. way over our green levels, which means we're way blown out. We should pull back, right? So knowing that, we knew that this was sort of a favorable short entry zone, risk related, because, you know, trend is all the way down here at the white, which you can see we got to, right? So if the statistical trend is down here in this, say, solid box, right? If that's the statistical trend, that yellow box down there, and we were trading all the way out here, clearly we're a little overdone from the statistical mean or average. So we knew this was a pretty risk-oriented short to take. Now, it also kind of looked like a bullish pennant here, right? Kind of looked like a pennant. So a lot of traders might have been looking at SWBI going, oh, this is going to pennant out and it's going to break, unknowing that the average was all the day down here. So you didn't really have a low risk long until you're back at prices of this, theoretically, all right? So even though it looked like a pennant, we were going based off the trend and a perspective that this is overvalued, and statistical average and mean is down here. So that's where we would like to be long, if anything, okay? So we'll put the short on, okay? This was one of the bigger size positions I took on the day. So you can see I ended up getting short 1,000 shares, 1,000 shares, 900 shares. So I was short a total of almost 3,000 shares. So we get our first initial breakdown. I'll cover 2,000 shares at 1819. So let's see, the entries were 1908, 1914, 1911. My first 2,000 share cover, which was majority of my position, was at 1890, right? Just as we kind of got closer to this yellow line, you could say. So this yellow line was 1884. So just as we got close to our first potential support area, I covered at 1890. Then I covered another 700 shares at 1886 as we got pretty much onto the yellow line. So at that point, I was pretty much all out of my trade. So I had a big position, made good money, took off majority of the risk at the first potential price target zone. And then as we faded down more, I took off my last little bit of shares, 100 shares here at 1881 below support, and then the last 100 shares at 1861 on our mean statistical average, knowing that this was probably a support area. We ended up bouncing, and I ended up taking another trade. This was the last trade we took with our members in our room. Some of them probably made money. I didn't. I actually messed my trade up. So what ended up happening was I told the traders, after we had this big move, big drop, big bounce, we would probably have a retracement move that we could short, which was that. So I was right on the trade. Some traders probably make money. I didn't. I ended up hopping off the line. And really the reason I didn't keep this trade on was because I messed my own trade up by trying to make more money, theoretically. Okay. So as we knew prices were coming back into our green level and our resistance, started shorting 100 shares here. I added 300 shares here. And then you can see where I added 1,200 shares. The problem is at that point when I shorted such heavy size there, I was shorting into what was already a little bit of weakness. So market makers used my order to actually pull the price of the stock down and start the breakdown on that candle. So my average was up here, and I wanted my average to stay right around there. But with how big a size that I took there, with already going into some slight weakness, the market makers used my order to drag the stock down. So then it pretty much put my average right here, which I did not want. If in the event I was wrong on the trade, my risk would have been too great on the squeeze out. So I messed my own trade up and made myself close out my full position as soon as I did that to myself. So as soon as I was taking my position of 400, I was good. Then when I added up here, my average ended up shrinking down, and I messed my own position up, and I basically punished myself and said, all right, well, that's what you get for being a jackass. So I closed out the whole trade. Now I could have added more size and I still could have managed this better. But at the time I was already green, well underway. I already had money on the day. At this point, it's already pretty much, I'm usually done trading for the day. So I was like, you know what? You messed up, call it, you're good. And so we took the trade off. But of course, right, story of my life, ends up working out, just fine. We get a retracement move back down to our yellow support level. And this is where we would typically be covering into that move. So hopefully some of the traders did okay there. But nonetheless, those were pretty much those were the two best trades, right? Worst trades were on ENPH, where we were just against the trend. And this was a good trade, recognizing an overvalue, overbought situation and shorting into what traders believed was maybe a small bearish, bullish pennant, and also using their sell orders to move the stock down. So I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you guys learned something new. As always, thanks again for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe to the channel. We do a pre-market live stream every single day at about 8:30 Eastern time, where we'll break a couple stocks down, talk about a couple things, goof around a little bit. It's a pretty good time. So if you want to join in, feel free every single day, 8:30 a.m. Hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button if you like to. If you don't, I can't force you to do anything you don't want to do. I'm just a guy behind a computer. So in that, guys, take care. Thanks again for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video.